You didn't actually do anything to it. Oh, because I didn't realize that.
There it is. Get them.
Yeah, I was just for
Morning, all Friday, January 2020. Day today, lunch, Domino's, ham, turkey stuffers, grilled chicken. Spartan Grill Line, Domino's. Today, bait. Today and tomorrow at Rep Central. Girls basketball games at Huron today. The boys are here. Huron will begin at 4 o'clock. Varsity games are scheduled for 7 p.m. Weekend, wrestlers being here. Again, debaters at Rep Central. And our basketball team will be in Mitchell. The boys play Mitchell here. Varsity games scheduled for 1:30. Playing to take track this spring. Snowball rapidly approaching. Make sure you have the following items for snowball. Student ID. You can take a picture of that ID with your smartphone and have that with you. Your snowball ticket, which will be $7 here or $10 at the door. Tickets will be sold starting on Monday through Thursday, before school, during Spartan time, and after school. No tickets will be sold on Friday. Office will be kind of short Thursday and Friday, so all those must be done before that time. Also, if you bring in someone that's not a Spearfish High School student, make sure you access your email from a while ago, get the dance form ran off, get that turned in. Still have the announcements on the health industry and scrubs camp, the law enforcement youth trooper academy, and the senior girls on the scholarship. Stop and guidance office if you have questions on any of those items. All, please stand in the pledge. With allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible. All have a great day. Great week.
All right. We'll keep saying it until we're 100% on board with the routine. Every day you come in, you get a daily quiz. Make sure you label it. Open book, open notes, open all resources, close mouths. That's it. Okay. You get nothing out of it. This is just a formative assessment, a way to gut check yourself and say, do I know how to do yesterday's stuff? Okay. If you're looking at your neighbor's stuff, if you're talking it over with your neighbor, that ain't you. You give yourself a false sense of security for when it comes time for a test. Okay? Just do the thing, score the thing. If you end up getting a 3 or lower, that means you need to ask some questions. That's all it is. Okay? Gut check. All right. That's that one, that one, that one, that one, that one, that one, that one. That one's out. Eli's over there. Brooks out. Oh, yeah, that's right. Girls basketball's out. And OG's here. Finn's here. Matt's here. And Kylie's here. Cool. Yep. If you just need a sheet, there's always a stack of it up there by the Island of Misfit Toys. If you need one for the class, like graph paper notebook, you throw $1 in the jar, and I got a whole stack of them up here. I just raid Walmart and have it on hand for the kids that need it. Also, every Friday, Safeway donuts. Like, just throw $1 in the jar, grab donut. So, Game Club survives solely off of selling food to impulsive teenagers. You think you're impulsive? I'm unmasked neurodivergent. My attention span goes wee. Oh, get y'all are doing that. Now again, I have a normal 10 by 10 grid up there. If you are making your own graph, you do whatever scale you want because you have whatever room you want. Okay? If you aren't doing it on graph paper, it needs to be neat enough and organized enough that I can tell where points are. Anyone should be able to look at your graph and tell that this point is at 1,5 or whatever it is. Okay? So line paper's fine, just make sure that it's neat enough that we can tell what's going on. Alright, no one burn anything, OG's in charge.
Are you? Is that cute? I think he's been. What do you think? Not that. Yeah. Is it like self-accident? Yeah. You just took it for accident, but you like maybe by the simple and then you said, yeah, well, I think that's how do you need to do that? I looked at the places. Well, what if you subtract this over and divide? I have no idea, honestly. Okay. I don't even know what you're saying. What did the answer say? It just says that like separate them, like the real from the imaginary. I guess I like it. I don't know.
Grunt of disapproval. I was hoping we could make it past the first week without putting anyone on the board of shame. Think Caden's gonna do better now that the whole goof troop's not here. That was quite the crew. We had fun. Okay, make sure you label all the things that it asks for. And it doesn't say how to graph it, it just says graph it. So as long as you have those features and you have correct points on it, you're good. Okay, these should be relatively quick. It's a single problem. I'd say 5 minutes, 10 tops, and that's like if we're racking our brain pretty hard. We go past 10, y'all. Okay. I'll give everyone that time. Everyone's going to work at a different speed. Boy, on my caseload, probably 12, 13 years ago, full-scale IQ 70, qualified as developmental disability, cognitive, was rocking an A in Algebra 2, and he could do this just fine. He was just slower than molasses. It would take him a half hour to finish 2 problems, but he knew what he was doing. Okay, everyone works at a different speed. So if it's ever an issue of not, I don't know what I'm doing, so I'm taking too long, is a different thing than, I know what I'm doing, just let me freaking finish already. Those are 2 very different things, okay? Advocate for yourself if it's the latter. Looks like just about everyone's done, so here we go. I'm going to go algebraic because, again, that's my jam. Come on, Frank. Hurry up. Frank! Oh. I'm going to start with my axis symmetry. X is negative b over 2a. Then I'm going to go find the function of that is negative 4 by thing minus 12 by thing minus 3. In there goes. Negative b. B is negative 12. A, negative 4. Negative, negative, negative is negative. 12 over 8 is 3 halves. Stick a... I even said negative. I said it, but I didn't write it.
I think so. You didn't write it, but you wrote it twice.
But like adults, right? Adults get to do what I say, not what I do. Isn't that like once you have spawn, you're allowed to do that? Yeah, fine. Yeah. Oh wait, no, we got to do it like Louisa, right? Guess what we watched again this morning? Negative 3 halves goes in. Okay. Negative 3 halves squared is 9 fourths. 9 fourths times a negative 4 is a negative 9. Negative 3 halves times a negative 12 is a positive 8. Negative 9 plus 8 is negative 1 minus 3 is negative 4? Question mark? Good thing we said question mark. 6. Okay. Oh, it's positive. Okay, that's fine. And then negative 3 halves 6, if I put that as my shoot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Now, what I want to show is difference in scale here. I'm going to start with it here at negative 3 halves 6. And then I have a vertical stretch by factor of 4. So I'm going to take all my perfect squares, 1, 4, 9, 16, on and on, times 4. Over a box down 1 times 4. Over 2 boxes down, not 4, 16. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15. Yeah! Why am I happy about that? Not only did it fit right there, but how many points am I going to have total now? 2, 6, 5, 11 blue. It's like I'm standing up front at Price is Right. I have 5, right? And we said yesterday, I'm pretty sure I said yesterday, I get you in second hour confused. 5 is kind of the minimum for parabolas. That was bad. 5 is kind of the minimum for parabolas because I can see the curvature to it when I've got 5. If I only have 3, you might accidentally make it a V like an absolute value. But if I see 5, I can get that little curve to it. Okay? So if I just have those 5 points, I'm happy. Now, if you had changed the scale, yours is going to look different, right? Who went with scale by 4? Okay? So option A, for those who did it. Option B, if I go by 4, my scale is going to change the shape of the graph. Shut up, Yoda. -3/2, and then 4. He's like shaking his head at me going, no, no. Yoda is up there. And then from there, I would use perfect square steps of over 1 down 1, over 2 down 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, over. Okay. So now it's more like that. It's still the same thing, though, right? That's what I want you to get out of this. As long as you have those same points, you're fine. Now, the things we want to label with it. We said we want our vertex, -3/2, 6. We want our axis of symmetry, x equals -3/2. Make sure you say x equals, not just -3/2. Y-intercept. If I plug zeros in for x, I get my y-intercept of -3. Okay. So it's like 3/4 of the way through the box there. So yint is at 0, -3. What else? That's it. I should have put on there whether it was a maximum or a minimum, but I think y'all got that. That's freebies easy. Here we go. Did you yint? Did you axis symmetry? Did you vertex? Does the shape of your graph correctly conform to perfect squares and having a vertical stretch of factor 4? And then we're going to leave a 1 floating back here in the work for, when I say the work, could you have just done this on a calculator? Could you have just typed it in, calculate maximum, poke, go to table, plot points, and then label stuff? Perfectly legal. When I say the work, I mean if you had done the algebraic work or typed it in, that 1 floater is for the domino effect. I literally forgot the negative in front of my 4. I put +3 over here. I called this a +3/2, and everyone got all salty about it and made me put a brownie point on the board. Like, whatever that little thing was, that just domino affects the whole graph. Look, did you do the graph correctly from that information? That's what I care about. Is your graph and your information correct based on what you had? So this would be like a typical problem on a test. Go do this thing. Here's the 5 points for it. And then right at the beginning, Kai's like, oh, I missed a negative. I look at your graph, I look at this stuff, oh, wow, that's way wrong. I go check your work, and oh, you just missed your negative. I put 1 little tick mark next to it. and move on. Domino. The domino effect. I screwed up this one little thing. You don't get 5 points off because of one mistake. You still did everything. I'll check your work to make sure everything else follows. But I am big on the process, not the final result. So, put something out of 5. Y'all good? I got to remember now to leave this up because we've got 2 sections. And what questions do we have on the homework besides did you know that you assigned 48 twice? Oh, we actually have a question on 48. Okay. Yeah, I tweaked the assignment from last semester to make last night's a little smaller and inadvertently put 48 on there again. So, oh well, freebie. 48 actually isn't a tough one. It's more of a conceptual thing where this is going to come back to us in chapter 7. 7? Yeah. No. 6 when we do partial fractions. Separate your real friends from your imaginary friends, right? So that means my real friend has to be this. My imaginary friend has to be this. Divide both sides by negative 3i. Or positive 3i.
Wait, how do you divide I?
Yeah. Anything divided by itself, 5 divided by 5, I divided by I, waffle divided by waffle, it's all 1. So.
Wait, so do you just 3? Wait, how do you...
That's it. But you compare the parts that are supposed to match. This is going to come back to us later when we do partial fractions where you're going to say this much x squared is that much x squared. This much x is that much x. This much constant is that much constant. You compare the parts. Okay? You just make a bunch of separate equations. Besides that, from first or second section. Okay? Was that the one with the radicals on the denominator? Okay. So 1 plus, I'm going to write the I out here instead, just because we're used to working with it like that. That's what we had talked about at the beginning of class yesterday. I wasn't sure if I had assigned these yet. Still conjugate. And the result will not be pretty. Up top, 1 times the stuff is 1 plus I root of 2. I root of 3 times the stuff is I root of 3. And if I take I root of 3 times I root of 2, whenever I multiply radicals, it's outside times outside, inside times inside. That's I squared square root of 6. Outside times outside, inside times inside. Okay, radicals are like mathematical Vegas. What happens in radical land stays in radical land. Okay, 1 by 1, 1 by I root of 2, minus I root of 2, minus, again, outside times outside, inside times inside. I'll get minus I squared times, square root of 2 by square root of 2 is just 2. And then clean stuff up. I know I squared is just a negative. I know I squared is a negative. Those two will cancel. The question is, how do I write this?
Should it be negative 6 as opposed to plus? plus, because you have the I squared.
And I even put it there. This is why we have the cap of 3. To be perfectly fair, this morning started bad. Our entire neighborhood's water is out. So I had to haul in our emergency tanks from the garage, and that's how we had to use the toilet, is fill the back of it. That's how we had to brush our teeth. When you go to sip the water to spit the toothpaste out, I decided to ram my forehead directly into the faucet. It was a morning! So anyway, yeah. Okay. Yes, real friends, imaginary friends, right? The problem is your real friends are still complex. Your imaginary friends are still complex. Or in this case, more specifically, your real friends are compound. That's 1 minus root of 6 over 3 is the real part, plus root of 2 plus root of 3 over 3 is the imaginary part. Now you can leave it like that, or you can separate them by denominator, so you have 4 different elements. But, so like, I've seen that as 1/3 minus root of 6 over 3 plus root of 2 over 3 plus root of 3 over 3 parenthesis I. So it's still like A plus BI. Seen it like that? Okay, they're all right. It's just a matter of organizing it and understanding that sometimes your real and imaginary friends can still be kind of ugly. So that was the one question I was asked, and it was last night after I was unconscious, and I answered it this morning. That was the one. Okay. Remember, if a kid asks me, as soon as I'm conscious and not beset upon by goblins or hauling water like it's 1800, I will answer. The second kid asks me, I just send them the same response, right? I already have it. I already scribbled it out. The third kid asks me, I'm sending it to the whole class, maybe with a video attached. Okay? The more you ask, the better your educational experience gets, the more engaged you're with it. So, those two. Anything else? Cool. So we left off with graph. Again, this is chapter 0. You better know how to graph a quadratic. Pure and simple. You just got to know. Today is like the line in the sand. This is Captain Picard saying this far, no farther. You have to be able to solve a quadratic. You learned all of this in Algebra 1. You should have been using it off and on with application problems in geometry. You did it again and beat it to death in Algebra 2 so that you could then do longer chain polynomials. This is now the 4th class that you have been solving quadratics. It is expected you know how and know how to quickly. So, tell me, how do you factor a quadratic?
What, is it adds up to the middle, but you flip backwards?
In this case, because my A value is 1, I'm just looking for factors of C that add up to B. You might have seen something like this. You got to find the magic pair. If you don't know the magic pair, you list them out. 1 by 12, 2 by 6, 3 by 4. And as soon as I hit 4, I see myself repeating numbers. That means that I've hit the end of my factors, so I don't need to say it again. Okay, well, none of those add up to -8. Right? there's not just those, there's -1 by -12, -2 by -6, -3 by -4. The magic pair, turns out, is -2, -6. Okay? Factors of 12 that add up to -8. Those are, I'll have x plus a value, x plus a value. The two values that we just came up with are -2 and -6. How do I check it to know if I'm right? Distribute. Distribute, combine like terms, you should end up right back where you started. Now, those are the easy ones because a value is 1. What about when it's not? AC method, box method. I actually never learned the AC method. I didn't know that that existed. My Algebra 1, air quotes, was in 8th grade in Podunk, Amaretto, North Dakota, graduating class of 12 kids. And I corrected the teacher more than the teacher knew what was going on. She got mad at me for saying, why can't we just do this and this, after she took up a whole board. My Algebra 1 experience was not good. I didn't even see a quadratic until Algebra 2. I never learned the AC method. I was in my 4th year of teaching. I just thought you were supposed to guess and check it in your head. And then I started doing an algebraic proof for it. Wait, doesn't it just always work out like this? And then another teacher said, yeah, that's the way you're supposed to teach it. So I kind of created it from scratch by accident. And then they said, yeah, that's just what you're supposed to do. Oops. AC method has steps. Step 1. I take that back. Step 0 is everyone to one side of the bus. Ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. And check for a GCF. Okay? If there's a greatest common factor, then factor it out. Or in this case, divide by it. Okay, after that, step 1 is you take a times c and find out which of its factors add up to b. So a times c is -24. Out of all the things that make -24, we have -1 and 12, 1 and -12, -2 and 24. Jesus. Said it's been a morning. 2 and -12, -3 and 8, 3 and -8, -4 and 6, 4 and -6, and then it'll start repeating. You find which of those are the magic pair that add up to -2. Okay. So step 2 is you split B term. Okay. Y'all ever been the third wheel? You got these two friends. You were a group of 3 friends, but now there's the couple. And you're just kind of there, and it's awkward, and it sucks. And you go out to eat or something, you go over to Golden Dragon, and they're just like all hugged up in the booth, and you're sitting there like on your phone, hating life. Okay? Wouldn't that be better if you had a friend? If you have 3 people, it's awkward. Once you have 4, okay, you 2 go over behind the ball pit at Burger King and do whatever you're going to do. Me and this guy are going to talk about how lame you are. You have a friend, you have a companion. If you have 4 things, you can now factor by grouping because there are groups instead of a group and awkward. I split that B term so that I have, we said it was -6 and 4. I'm going to turn that into 8k squared plus 4k minus 6k minus 3 is 0. I split that middle term because now I've got 4 terms. Now there's 4 people. Now there can be groups. I can factor by grouping. Factoring by grouping is you factor each half. You cut this down the middle and you say, all right, what does the power couple have in common? What's a common factor between these two? They both have a 4 and a k, leaving a 2k plus 1. What do these two have in common? So I take a negative 3 out, leaving a 2k plus 1. This is just a bigger, uglier version of if I had 4km minus 3m. You would factor out an m, right? It's just a bigger, uglier m. It's an entire binomial. So that is step 4. I factor out the common binomial. I'm going to take this 2k plus 1 that they have in common, and I'm going to take it out. Leaving a 4k and a negative 3. And then finally, solve. Solve each equal to 0. Right? The whole premise behind solving these, I didn't actually do that for the first one. The premise behind solving these is that I have a thing times a thing equals 0. What has to be true? One of them got to be 0. So you find out, well, what if this one was 0? That is one of the last times you'll ever see me write that. I think we're good enough by this point, our 4th iteration through quadratics, to just subtract, divide in our head. After this, k is 3/4. Those are your 2 answers. Okay? Steps. Steps is good. Now, with this, I have, if you go look in our Google Drive folder, I have the holy sheets. Holy sheets. Come on, Frank, let's go. No, not that. That. Holy sheet. This is my notes for chapter 0. Okay? Within it, set notation, 0, 1. All of our symbols, that is incorrect. That's supposed to be subset. Our stuff about complex numbers, our ring, how I use conjugates, how to graph quadratics, where everything goes, where your zeros are, where your y-intercept is, your vertex, all that kind of stuff. Vertical motion model from all the way back in Algebra 1. Okay, really common to have that for word problems. And a factoring decision tree. When I run into a quadratic of any kind, get it in standard form and then say, is there a GCF? Do it. Are A and C perfect squares? If A and C are both perfect squares, then whether there's a middle term or not determines which of our 2 special forms it is. Either it's a perfect square trinomial or it's difference of squares. Or there isn't, and then I ask, well, does A equal 1 or not? If A does equal 1, then it's just factors of C that add up to B. If A doesn't equal 1, there's your steps for AC method. Okay? Open notes, open everything on every one of my tests. Yeah. Google Drive, the big Google Drive button. Yeah. Okay, we're about to get to completing the square. There's the proof for complete the square and all the steps for it. Okay. What we're going to do for radicals, rationals, prob stats. How many of us actually remember all of our one variable statistics? Okay. I know in my class last semester we had to cram that in because we just didn't get that in Algebra 1. It's all there. Okay. So, with that said, do it.
What's up?
Yes, if you go into the Google Drive link, there's something called the PreCalc Bible, the Bible.
Yo, how much are donuts?
Hmm?
How much are donuts?
$1, just like Pop-Tarts. But you're gonna start, aren't you? Empty carbs are great. That's actually where Donut Fridays started, was a word problem about doing a fundraiser selling breakfast to kids or something. Kid just asked me, could we do that? Can we just have food?
This isn't running like 75 cents.
It's a fundraiser, bud. If you want to go over to Safeway and pay the $5 for a dozen like I did, go ahead. Otherwise, Game Club appreciates your patronage. On Fridays, that's why I do it.
Oh, I thought they were like $1 per. Like, how are you making money?
It's normally $7 for the box.
Okay, I was like, how do you make profit?
Yes, profit. It's not much. If I sell them all, then by the end of the day, every Friday, Game Club gets $20. Woo! Yeah. But that means that every quarter I'm able to go buy pizza for our Saturday Geekathon for Game Club. That's all it is. Okay, now if you're in pre-calc, odds are that you're pretty good at math. Okay, you've done well so far. There are concepts you can use to kind of narrow this down. A is 1. The only way I'm making t squared is with a pair of t's. At that point, it is what factors of negative 18 will add up to 3 in the middle. 6 and negative 3. Set each equal to 0 and solve. Okay? And Okay. With these ones, when you think about this, what's the only way you make a 2c squared? A 2c times a c, right? Because 2c squared has a prime coefficient, I know I'm starting there. I'm betting that most of you could just rapid fire through the factors of 4 in your head and figure out which ones are going to get me a middle term of 9. A 4 and a 1. That's how I thought for years. That's just how you do it. In fact, you probably might have had a teacher, I hope not, but you probably had a teacher that showed you the way to factor these is just to write that out with boxes right here and here and just start guessing and checking numbers until it works. I know Mr. Schroeder used to before he finally retired. Nice guy, but he definitely still taught like it was 1985. That's just how I thought you did it. Anyone do the box method? Box method is, I know this has to be 2c and c to get 2c squared. I know this has to be 4 by the end. Just a way to organize that guess and check process. All right, what times what makes 4? But I'll have 2 of these and 1 of those. And they have to add up to 9 things. Oh, okay, maybe I'll just make this a plus 4. So I have my 8c here, and I'll make this a plus 1, so I have my plus 1c here. Altogether 9c. For some kids, that is the ticket. It all depends on how you do it. I don't care. You do it how you're going to do it. The official algorithmic way of doing it, AC method, says A times C is 8. Go through your factors of 8, split 9. 2c squared is 8c plus c plus 4 is 0. Cut it in half. Say these guys got a 2c in common, leaving c plus 4. What do those two have in common? They're, okay, the power couple is behind the ball pit at Burger King. You look at the other guy and you're like, they suck, right? Yeah. And that is what you have in common. Like sometimes all you have in common is 1. You just stare awkwardly at each other and then you complain about the other two kids. It is super important that you put that 1 as a placeholder, though. If you do not have a placeholder, this will fall apart. So, okay, I got that. Take the c plus 4 out. Set both equal to 0. C equals -4 and -1/2. Okay. So again, there was guess and check. There was box method. There is AC method. Do what works for you. I'm not going to force you to do it a certain way. If I say factor, any of those works. What we got to be careful about is if the directions specify solve by factoring versus by a different method. Every year we have this discussion. Every semester I have this discussion. You learned how to complete the square in Algebra 1. Then we showed you quadratic formula and you promptly forgot it. We showed you how to complete the square again in Algebra 2. And then we reviewed quadratic formula, and throughout our polynomials, we gave you the option, complete the square quadratic formula, and everyone said, quadratic formula it is. There will come a time in this class, chapter 7, where you will have to complete the square twice per problem. There is a purpose to knowing it. Personally, I actually believe that this is faster. I can complete the square in my head, no problem. I can't quadratic formula in my head. But complete the square I can. I don't know, something about the organizational method of it. Complete the square also has its own steps. See, the idea behind complete the square is, side quest, if I say x squared equals 9, how do you solve that? Okay. And whenever we introduce a radical, whenever we put square root, if there's already a square root there, it's considered the principal root. You go with the positive version. If we put a radical in the process of solving, we have to put plus or minus. Okay, what if that was words 5 numbers? Yes. Divide by 5. And then in this house, you do not go to decimal land. Okay. How many of you got a job? How many hours would you say you work a week? 20-ish? Okay. If you don't mind me asking, will you get paid? Good. Hot damn, get it, girl.
Wait, you're making 15?
Do not work anywhere in this town for under 10. Do not.
So, wait, South Dakota minimum wage is $9.95.
That's a recent development too. That's just in the last couple of years. Okay. They also introduced a bill. I don't remember if it went through or not. They introduced a bill about 3-4 years ago saying that they could pay anyone under the age of 18 less. They could reduce minimum wage for minors. Yeah. Are you kidding? You see all the fast food places around here putting like, hey, we hire at age 14. Child labor. Like, so, okay. So say you're making $10 an hour. And you said South Dakota minimum wage was $9.95. What's the difference? What's the difference over the course of the school year? 40 weeks. 40 weeks, 20 hours a week. What does that nickel do to you? $400. Wait, is it 400 or 40?
Yeah, so 40 weeks times 20 hours a week times. Oh, I did 50 cents. $40.
There we go. Okay, 40 bucks. 40 bucks is I filled up my tank. 40 bucks is I got to go out to a decent dinner. 40 bucks is I got to do drive-through in a movie. They took that away from you with a nickel. If you call the square root of 75 8 point something, as soon as you cut it off, as soon as you round it off, you have lost that part of your answer. It is no longer the right answer. Okay? Now, if I go into Necht Home Center and I say that I need 5 squared 3 feet of 2x8, they're going to look at me kind of sideways. And not just because one of them's cross-eyed. They're going to just not know what I'm saying. Then I would give the decimal approximation. What I want you to do with these is you say plus or minus 5 root of 3, and then you say approximately plus or minus the 8 point whatever it was. Okay? Yes, you give me the real answer and the approximate answer. Both. But if you don't, honestly, I don't even care about the approximation. I really don't, unless we're talking in context of a word problem. I want 5 squared of 3. I hope, dear God, I hope that you know how to simplify radicals. coming into PreCalc.
Oh, wait, get it?
Simplify it. Go. Gotta know how to do this. I force kids to do simplified radical answers in Algebra 1 because you should have been doing it nonstop in geometry. And then when you hit Algebra 2, as you're doing quadratics and polynomials and radicals of different stripes, you should have everything in radicals. Otherwise, the polynomials don't recompose at the end. Okay. I was literally hitting the head this morning, but I had 2 root of 140. Yes, no? Okay. Now let's say you have no idea. You can always go old school. Y'all remember factor trees? I got no clue what's going on, but I know how to factor tree to get its prime factors. That was 56 and 10, 2 and 5, 8 and 7, 4 and 2, 2 and 2. That means the square root of 560 is the square root of 2 by 2 by 2 by 2 by 5 by 7. You go for all the prime factors at the ends of the branches. And then, being a square root, it's like there's a level 2 guard at radical jail. It takes 2 to bum rush the guard, 1 gets out alive. It takes 2 to bum rush the guard, 1 gets out alive. Did I miss a 2? I missed a 2. Oh, it's 4 and then 35? Okay, there you go. So I had an extra number in there. I said I was literally hitting the head this morning. So 4 root of 35. I missed my extra 2. So that's why there was an extra, yeah. Okay. We should be able to simplify radicals. We should be able to solve square roots. The whole purpose of that is what happens when I get that. I undo squared with square root. Don't turn this into a quadratic, subtract 5, and then go to town on it. Instead, I can just add 3 over and leave it as a compound number. Okay? With a rational part and an irrational part. Just like with imaginary numbers, you separate your real from your imaginary friends, you should also separate your rational friends from your irrational friends. You know which ones I'm talking about. Your rational friends say, maybe we should just, go over to your place, watch a movie. Your irrational friend says, dude, have you ever gone cow tipping by paintball in the head? Like, you and then when they're dazed, then you kick them. Don't do that. That's animal cruelty. But that irrational friend is going to get you arrested. You should probably separate them from your rational friends. Okay?
You ever fishing with 762?
The shock wave will make them bubble up, yeah.
He's smart. He's irrational, but he's smart.
I haven't. Okay, magnesium flares will still burn underwater. So I have gone fishing with improvised dynamite out of sparkler bombs, but I haven't with the 7.62. I was an only child in rural North Dakota. My nearest friend was like 8 miles away by four-wheeler. I had to improvise. So the whole purpose of this, is that I want to make a something squared. I only get that with a perfect square trinomial. I need to make this a perfect square trinomial. So step one, which we don't have to worry about in this case, is to eliminate the Canadians. Divide by A.
Oh, that's a good one.
Ba-dum-bum. Okay, honestly, they've got their own problems, but they got their crap together more than us. Okay. So in this case, I don't have to divide by an A value because A is 1. All right. If you leave that A value there, say there was a 3, it completely screws up the rest of the process. That's why we get it out of there to begin with. Okay, step 2 is like a middle school dance. Boys over here, girls over there. I want all of my variables left, my constants right. I want x squared minus 4x, and I want to leave this space for the thing that completes a perfect square, and I will subtract 1 to the other side. Okay? Variables on the left, constants on the right. I'm leaving room to complete the square. The perfect number that goes right here, that makes it a perfect square trinomial, it's no state secret, it is just b over 2 squared. B over 2 squared is the thing that completes a square. You should have seen this as a visual in Algebra 1 and 2 with like algebra tiles. Like if you cut part of a rectangle off to make it a square, there's literally a little square missing in the corner. That is the piece that's missing. So in this case, B is what? Half of that. Square it. So I add 4 to both sides. There you go. I have completed said square. What that allows me to do is to rewrite my perfect square trinomial. The way that I write it, and the thing that makes it perfect, is it's always going to be x plus b over 2 squared equals some number. Right? What factors of 4 add up to negative 4? Negative 2 and negative 2. I'll have an x minus 2 times x minus 2, which is a x minus 2 the quantity squared, which happened to be half of b, which happened to be the square root of c. That's what makes it perfect. You are making a perfect square trinomial because it has all of these properties. Now that I got that, I can solve it by square roots. I square root u, x minus 2 is plus minus square root of 3, and I will add my 2 over and leave it that way because that is the correct form. I leave it that way. Now, square root of 3 is about 1.73. If you wanted to then have the approximation next to this, approximately 0.27, approximately 3.73. Great, yay, that's what I'm looking for. Okay, now I'm going to leave those steps there, and I'm going to do it again when the Canadians invade. Like this one. Meaning, there's an A value that is not 1. So step 1, I have to eliminate the Canadians. Divide by 8. I divide everything. Okay, I also grew up on South Park. Like, the pilot episode of South Park came out when I was in 7th grade. I'm 37. South Park's been around that long. Now, say what you will about the show, but when you're 14 years old, that's pretty funny. Okay. So, I've got v squared plus 3v plus 5/3 is 0. I divide everything by that. I move my variables left, constants right. V squared plus 3v is negative 5/3. I add b over 2 squared to both sides. Be not afraid of the fraction. Don't you dare go to decimal town. The fractions usually end up working out nicely for us anyway. What is b?
Do we start with the original B or the...
New b. It's always from the previous step.
Okay, so
3. 3 divided by 2 is, don't you dare say 1.5. 3 halves. Because when I square 3 halves, I just square numerator denominator. I'm going to add 9/4. Now here's why that's important. If I say, get over here, parenthesis, negative 5 divided by 3, parenthesis, plus 9, or parenthesis, 9 divided by 4. If those were the decimal equivalents, it says 0.583. Are you going to write 3's for infinity? Are you going to write the little line over it and then somehow be able to punch in an infinite number of 3's in the next step? Are you stuck with a TI-83 and you now have to press math fraction to get it to the correct answer? Okay, that works too. Okay. Or, hopefully you know how basic, please tell me you could add fractions without a calculator. Common denominators, times 4 times 4 times 3 times 3. Get a negative 20/12 plus 27/12 is 7/12. Rewrite this as v plus 3 halves, the quantity squared.
Wait, how did you do it? It's, oh, you just factored it? No, you just took the, like, X and then added. Yeah, I got it.
Okay. No, I want you to stop me, but make sure that we actually get it. I hate it when a kid stops me to ask a question and then they, never mind. Like, no! Ask me the question! If you have the question, odds are there's 3 other people in the room with the exact same question. Ask it. Solve by square root. Okay. So I have v plus 3 halves is plus or minus. Remember that the square root of a fraction is a fraction of square roots. That's the square root of 7 over the square root of 12. Can you rationalize that? Simplify and rationalize.
So don't you have to multiply, like, the bottom by the square root? And the top?
I'm not going to multiply it by the square root of 12. Because that's 2 root of 3. Remember, no radicals downstairs. 2's okay, I know his dad. I'm just going to multiply top and bottom by square root of 3. Okay. So I will have plus or minus square root of 7 by square root of 3 is square root of 21. Root of 3 and root of 3 is 3. Times 2 is 6. And then I'll subtract that 3 halves over. Amazing what a difference throwing in odd numbers, primes, and a values do to it. Okay, it went from that's not so bad to, I gotta think. Y'all got a calculator that'll do fractions? Use it. There you go. Let the calculator do the heavy lifting for you. Okay, for those of you, I see a couple of you got a TI-83. You have to type all of your fractions in as parenthesis, this divided by this, parenthesis. And that's fine. You're just going to have to math change to fraction at the end of it. Okay? What?
You used to be the whole time and then wrote x equals.
I will put that up as a brownie point if I get to mark that off on your quizzes. Okay? Sass. Oh. Thought you were just calling me out. Okay. Which would be totally fair. Those two. Three squared is 9. 9 plus 9 is 16. 16 is 4. Plus 9 is 16. Square root of 16 is 4. So 5 is 3. By 4, 1/4. 1/4, 2, 1. 1/4 plus 1 is 5/4. So it's 5, so it's plus minus. I'm a little fuzzy on that one. And not just because my right eyebrow is twitching. Second one. Okay. You can always tell when someone's done and they're confident because they get that mic drop. Get wrecked, math. And since Eli is not already correcting me, I'm assuming that my mental mojo is okay for second one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why don't I use the first part? Unless it's for right.
That's what I'm saying. I want you, like, if I'm wrong, you call it out. Any teacher who tries to pretend like they're not wrong or they didn't make a mistake, that's just being egotistical on a power trip. Y'all, I'm a human. I make mistakes. Normalize making mistakes and then fixing them. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Six. Oh. You're fine. You just
A cautionary tale about number 6. Don't leave it like that. I'll have kids do it, right? You already don't have an a. You already have your constant on the other side, so you add b over 2 squared to both sides. Half of 6 is 3. 3 squared is 9. 9 to both sides. Write your m plus half of b, so m plus 3, the quantity squared. Square root both sides, subtract 3 over, and I'll have kids just leave it there. See, we leave it like that when it's a rational and an irrational, when it's a real and an imaginary. I don't leave it like that when they're both rational numbers that can be added together. Negative 3 plus 4 is 1. Negative 3 minus 4 is negative 7. Okay? That's what I mean by finish it off all the way. Contestant 2. I divide everything by, you know what? I'm just going to shoop. I already have my constant on the other side, so I'm going to go for divide by a. C squared minus 2c is 1/4. Add b over 2 squared to both sides. Half of negative 2 is negative 1. Negative 1 squared is 1. Getting the quantity c minus 1 squared, always half of b, square root of c. 1 is really 4/4. This becomes 5/4. This is why we want to go to fraction town. When I go to fraction town and I square root, odds are usually that denominator is going to be decent for us. It's going to be a perfect square. So when I square root, I get plus or minus the square root of 5 over the square root of 4, which is just 2. Add 1 over. Now, we got a little bit of time here. Before I do the thing, I want to try another thing. Right? Sounds like a plan. I want you to go to the next page. Please tell me you know quadratic formula. It's the thing you kept doing instead of complete the square. Okay, again, right above Caden's head. B squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Yes. Okay. Quadratic formula. Yes. X is negative b plus minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. A couple of things from years of experience. One, use parentheses. I swear kids screw up a negative when they square b or when they have a negative b over and over and over. Please use parentheses. Two, when it's all over 2a, that means you don't divide until the very end. Here's what I mean. You do all the stuff, and then a kid will get down here and then they will kill a mathematical puppy and say that that's 1 plus 10 root of 2 over 4. You now go to mathematical hell. Don't do that. There's an inside joke, and I'm intrigued. Math is communist. What you do for one, you do for all. Okay? Divide this by 5, that by 5, that by 5. Because both of those things are over 20. Okay? So use parentheses and don't divide until the very end. The way that I always set it up is with those parentheses. I say x is negative parenthesis plus minus square root of parenthesis squared minus 4 parenthesis, bunch of butt cheeks, and say 2 parenthesis. Then I plug in a, b, and c. B, negative 4. A, 1. C, 15. Take the parts that you can as part of your order of operations. 4 plus minus 16 minus 60. Simplify your radical. Remember, this is the square root of negative 1 times 4 times 11. So that's 4 plus or minus, an I comes out, a 2 comes out. And then, math is communist. What you do for one, you do for all. Divide by 2, divide by 2, divide by 2. Now, we've been writing it like that since you learned what I was. Remember, technically, it's 2 plus or minus square root of 11 I. I will take both. Just be aware of that. Okay? So just thumbs up or down. You remember how to do this? Quadratic formula? Okay? Cross out all the bottom problems. Instead, what I would like you to do, right? Yeah. Is complete the square. Notice we did not do this one, which means you've got room to do one where I'm just like, yo, primes, splat, and see what happens. Go. By complete the square. I want you to practice it in class so that when you get it in an assignment, you don't freak out. How many times have you had an insufficient amount of practice in class, but you were given 30 minutes to do the work? You get to the work and everyone stares at each other saying, what the is this? Right? I would much, much rather that we got the practice with the stuff you don't want to do on your own before you have to do it on your own.
Oh my God, why is it 0 to 7?
So -5 sevenths, -3 sevenths, -3 14ths. Squared is 9 over 196. Jesus. 9 over 1. I'm going to hell. 9 over 196. -5 sevenths. Seven times 2 is 14 times 28. So it's got to be by 28. So that's a -100, -140. -140 plus 9. It's -131 over 14I root of 131 plus minus 3/7 3. Yes or no? Uh, is it? I got frazzled at the end because I heard Jaden start talking and I was trying to tune it out. I was like, no, don't tell me the answer. I'm almost there.
Does the root and I have to come afterwards, or can it go before?
I'll take either. It's technically it's supposed to be at the end A plus BI. Yeah.
See, that's what I was thinking. I would sell my kidney to not do this problem again.
Bro, if you got a spare kidney, dude, I'm a teacher. They pay us in peanuts and insults. I will happily take that.
Listen, I'm making a donation again. Put it in a jar and take it down.
No, it doesn't work
How
that
many
way.
donuts do I get for that?
I think you get free donuts for life.
Practically.
Don't you need less because now you have less ability to like filter out all of the preservatives and stuff?
I'll get more.
You get half a donut now. Okay, so the mental mojo worked. That's where you should end up. Let the calculator do the fraction stuff for you.
You just have to plug it into the equation. The one side.
No, not by quadratic formula. By complete the square. I know that y'all can do quadratic formula because you've been doing that to avoid doing this with complete the square. Now do it by complete the square. I said I can complete the square in my head. I can't quadratic formula in my head. Too many moving parts. So, but that's where it is. I double checked your assignment right before class. There is 9 total problems. I'm guessing it's probably one. No, it's probably one of different types of factoring. Probably 2 of complete the square and 2 of quadratic formula, where it comes out decent and it comes out ugly. Like just a sprinkling of each type of flavor. Okay? So if you got a free block next, the plan book is correct. There it is. Do the thing. 9 problems of homework. We'll see y'all on Monday. If you get hungry later, come back and get food. Game Club appreciates your business.